So energy procurement, our procurement offering is in the how you buy it category, right? You want to get the lowest price possible per kilowatt hour.
Right.
So that's available in deregulated markets, right? So the difference being that regulated markets are completely controlled by the utility, and rates have to be approved by a governing board, the state or the PUC or whatever it is. In deregulated markets, there are third-party suppliers that you can buy your energy from, and that creates a market price for energy. So how does it work? Well, before deregulation, the utility controlled everything, right? They had power plants, they produced the energy, they owned the wires, so they produced energy and delivered it and sold it to customers. Under deregulation, that broke down into 3 separate businesses. You've got companies in the business of generation, so the utilities had to divest themselves of their generation sources, and then they still retained the wires, so they still own the wires, and then they deliver the electricity to the customer, but there's a third party, the retailer, the electricity supply retailer, that's buying that energy on the open market either from generations or on the spot market or however they're doing it, and they're selling that to the customer, and then the utility is still responsible for delivering that. So when a customer in a deregulated market gets their bill, they're going to see 2 sections. One section of distribution charges that are from the utility that represent the delivery of that electricity, and then the supply charges, which represents actually the purchase of the electrons. So what does deregulation do? Who cares? Why do we care about why is deregulation good? So it provides a whole bunch of options for a customer, right? So they can have different go-to-market options in terms of market timing or whether or not they want to purchase from a third party or from a supplier. It's not always cheaper to purchase from a third-party supplier. They can incorporate green options if they want, renewable energy, or have some percentage of their energy to be green. They can look at different contract terms. They can, go long, go short, go partial, kind of a mix of the two, however they want to do that. They can control their bandwidth, so they can be locked into a certain number of kilowatt hours or not, or have some leeway there. And then there's a pricing strategy that different pricing strategies. So anything from fixed to index, we'll talk a little bit more about what that means later, hedging strategies. So depending on what the customer's needs are, they're able to have different pricing strategies. So what do customers do in a deregulated market? How do they go about purchasing energy? So basically there are different ways to do it. They can go directly to suppliers themselves. It's usually a very time-consuming process. They usually don't have access to as many suppliers as a broker or a consultant would, but it is one way of doing it. Customers mistakenly think that if they go directly to the supplier and cut out the broker that they'll save money when they actually don't, and we'll talk more about that later. There are brokers and consultants. For me, the difference between them is that a broker is very transactional, right? You want to buy energy? Okay, great. I've got some suppliers. I'll compare some pricing for you. I'll show you what I can offer you, and then you pick pick one. So kind of similar to like the way an insurance broker does it. Consultants are a little bit more, consultative. I mean, they'll help devise, maybe spend a little more time devising a strategy. Brokers typically get paid by the suppliers, and consultants typically get paid by the customer. Okay. And then, and neither one of them are particularly transparent, right? So a broker, you never know what a broker is going to be showing the customer. He may show the 3 best offers. He might show the 3 best offers that make the most money for him. You never really know. Aggregators will aggregate multiple customers. So, for instance, you're going to aggregate all the school systems in the Houston area and go to market as a group. There is some value to high volume shopping, which is usually the the case that they make, but the problem is that everybody has a different load profile. And so sometimes, the customers that have the better load profiles tend to be paying more and kind of subsidizing the people in the group that have a worse, a less, a better load profile that would be more, that's not more cost effective. So it's not necessarily good for everybody when you do an aggregation. AARACO is somewhere in between a broker and a consultant. We are a broker in that we do most of the time get paid by the supplier as an added fee per kilowatt hour. So every time the customer pays their bill, the supplier will pay AARACO based on the number of kilowatt hours the customer used in that month. But we also take a very consultative approach. We are going to spend a lot of time with the customer, understanding their needs and developing a strategy. So what is our approach? How do we do it? It's basically in 3 steps. Number 1 is developing that strategy, talking to the customer, understanding their needs, educating them in the market, understanding their risk, and coming up with some strategies that we can go to market with. And then we execute on those strategies. So that's where we bid it out. We're to several suppliers, either through the auction or not, depending on how we're doing, what we're doing with that particular customer. But we'll execute on whatever strategies that we've come up with, get the contract signed help the customer sign the contract with the supplier. And then it doesn't end there. Once they've made their transaction, then we have ongoing energy management so that we're always going to be in touch with that customer, making sure that their energy objectives, that the current contract is meeting their energy objectives, giving them information about new market opportunities, just keeping them informed about the market in general, and giving them a place to manage their contracts online in a platform. So we'll talk about each of those things. So here's some gory details about exactly what each of those steps entails. I'll send you this deck, and you can go over it later. We can talk about it later, but just in the interest of time, I don't want to go over all the little details.
I know most of it anyway, so it's fine.
I'm sorry, what?
I said I'm familiar with pretty much 99% of this anyway,
okay,
so I know you're doing it for liability, but yeah.
Well, tell me if you want me to skip anything.
Well, I mean, I like the way you play. I mean, I don't know, I like the way everything's said. It's fine.
Okay, great.
I mean, is there really imperative stuff that is coming up or something that you really want to touch on, or tell me about fixed rates or something?
We're definitely gonna talk. Yeah, so you understand. I'll breeze through some of it that you probably already understand in terms of what's a risk assessment and what's a fixed rate and all that. So, but we'll get to the stuff later about what's our target customer. How do you approach them? Things like that. So the first thing we're going to do is talk to the customer about what's going on in the market, educate them on what's going on in the market, and then we're going to do a customer needs assessment that is going to assess, do they need green? Do they have any on-site generation? What's going on with their current contracts, their risk, their billing preferences, any company initiatives that might impact their energy, we're trying to reduce by 20% by next year or something. Look at their load profiles, get a start date and a term length that they're comfortable with, and that will be based on the market and their risk and things like that. Talking about risk, basically you have index pricing to fixed pricing. Fixed pricing is very high market risk. Index pricing is high budget risk. So you can be anywhere along that spectrum depending on the market strategy. But you choose a market strategy and a pricing structure that aligns with the customer's risk. So this is a very important conversation that we have with each customer. We also look at all the electric components. So if, for say, perhaps they have an ability to control their capacity costs separately, so we may want to pass through the capacity on that particular contract. So different markets will have certain, be slightly different, but for the most part, what you're shopping for is the energy, this big chunk on the 52% on the side, and then some of these get included in the price or not, and that's something that we need to discuss with the customer. Same with gas. I'm talking about electricity, but everything I'm saying is also applicable to gas.
Yeah, I know.
Here's some different examples of different pricing strategies. You're familiar with these, so I'm not going to go over them.
Yep.
And then once we've come up with some strategies, and we don't have to come up with one. That's one of the beauties of the auction, is that we can come up with multiple strategies based on the customer's different needs. Maybe they have different ways that they can look at it, and we can run multiple auctions for each of those strategies, and then at the end of the day, look at which one resulted in the best pricing. So we're going to post all of our RFPs for auction, which means we're going to vet the suppliers and send them out an invitation to the auction. They log in and bid, and we hopefully see the results. So we have a vendor selection process that helps us determine which vendors we're going to invite to the auction based on the contract requirements that we've come up with the customer. We have access to over 500 suppliers in North America. The auction is an Anglo-Dutch design, which means it has a hard stop. It also means that the last minute or two, I can't remember if it's 1 minute or two, but the last minute or two of the auction is blind. So all during the auction, for the first chunk of it, the suppliers can see each other's bids, so they always have the opportunity to sharpen their pencil and go in and try to bid lower. The last 2 minutes are blind. So what we're seeing here in this box is that supplier F outbid themselves in the last 2 minutes of the auction to try to make sure they won the business. And we see this happening about 25% of the time. We sequence I said we run multiple auctions to test multiple strategies, and we sequence them to put increased pressure around the strategies that the customer's most interested in. So if they really, really want 10% green, we'll run those auctions last. So the bidders who perhaps didn't win any of the previous auctions can say, well, heck, I'm going to get super tight on this one because I want to win this last one. So again, we have over 500 suppliers. The bids are always visible with a hard stop. Greatest pressure on the auctions we want most by sequencing the auctions. 99.9% of our auctions result in a contract being awarded, even though the customer has no obligation to do so. So a customer has to give us an exclusivity period where they are exclusive to us. That means suppliers know that this customer, if they're going to contract, have to contract through AARACO. That allows them to be super competitive on the auction. And even though, but customers, they have to be exclusive to us for a certain period of time, saying that if they contract, they have to do it through us, but they don't have to sign a contract. So if they run the auction, they're not happy, they can run another auction, they can walk away, whatever. But 99.9% of the time, auctions do result in a signed contract with a customer. So I was talking before about how customers go to market. They can go through their supplier, they can go to a broker or a consultant. And we've done this now for about 15 years. We've run over 50,000 auctions, and we have very good relationships with our suppliers. And we've talked to them, and they've told us that we asked them about the margins that they're able to add. And they said that when a customer goes to them directly, they're able to add about 5 to 12 mils in a contract. And they can do that because usually customers aren't as savvy, and they know there's going to be a lot less competition. So a customer who's going to go to a supplier directly thinking they're going to cut out that broker margin well, yeah, they're going to cut out the broker margin, but the supplier is going to add more. With traditional consultants and brokers, the suppliers know that there's going to be some competition, there's going to be some expertise involved. Usually their margins are between 4 and 8 mils. And then with the auction platform, because the suppliers have an opportunity to cut their bids and try and beat that their competition, they're typically adding between 1 and 3 mils of margin in their deals. So same with gas. So we really know that the margin, that the auction, the competition that's created by the auction really drives down those margins for the customer. So again, discovery, where we collect the utility bills or supplier bills, a contract, letter of authorization, those things. We talk to the customer, have a pre-auction call, we develop the RFP, send it out to the suppliers, we run the auction, and that all happens within about 4 hours. And then there's a post-auction call, typically around 2 o'clock, so that we can analyze the results and make a decision on a contract.
Do I have any say in it?
Absolutely.
Like what I want to take them for, or like, I mean, what strategy we want to ultimately go with, or anything like that, or?
Absolutely. So it can be, well, you can be on the auction call, the pre-auction call, and
oh yeah, can you watch it?
You can log in, watch the auction, yeah, and then be on the post-auction call. Absolutely. Yeah, we welcome that.
Well, I mean, yeah. Sure.
Yeah, great. And then it doesn't stop there. Once the customer's contracted with their supplier, oftentimes with brokers and consultants, that's where it ends until the contract's about to expire, and then you get a call saying, hey, it's time to renew. We have ongoing monitoring and reporting that goes on with the customer has access to our exchange platform. So it's the same platform where the auction is run, and they'll have ongoing access to that. So there's 3 tabs on the platform. So there's a little shot of the top of the home screen at the bottom. So there's the dashboard tab, which has all kinds of market data and insights from ENERNOC. It'll have a list of, say, upcoming auctions. If the customer has lots of locations. And then there's the opportunity tab. So if you look at the top right, there's a map of opportunities. So this customer has locations in the states that are in green. And the darker the green means that there's a better opportunity to renew the contract right now. Like prices are really low and we think it's a really good time to renew. So a customer can then click on that and dig in, and I'll show you another slide about that in a minute. Then there's the transactions tab. It has all the transaction elements, the contract details, a list of all the bids. Everything is recorded about everything that we've done, and all of the documentation is there. You will have access to the same platform. You'll have access in the beginning, depending on what level partner you are. We have a gold, silver, bronze program we can talk about in a minute too. But as a bronze partner, like with your first deal, you'll have access to the transactions tab. It's also going to give you access to your commission reports, be able to see which customers you have with us, and some other reports. So there's all kinds of reporting available in the system, market pricing, weather data, all kinds of things, the fundamentals, summary, where we think the market's going. But the customer has access to this information, but they don't, if they're they don't have to be paying attention. We're going to stay on top of it for them and keep them aware of what's going on. If we see an opportunity for them, we're going to give them a call. Managing all the contracts in one place. these are, it'll let you know when your contracts are coming up for expiration or going to expire. And it'll house copies of all of your contracts so you have them in one place. There are also alerts and triggers that can be set. So customer can say, if the price ever got down to 5 cents, I want to lock it in, and I don't even want you to call me. Just do it. So we can set executable triggers. We can just send informational alerts about pricing, or just send different market updates for the customer, depending on what level of service they're looking for. So we were talking about the opportunities map before. If the customer saw, I think in that last map, this is Illinois, obviously. So if the customer saw a dark green state of Illinois, they could click on that, and it clicks through to this map showing all of their locations. You can zoom in and out on this map. You can get right down to the street level, and it'll show a graph of the market data, why we think it's a good time to buy, what contract we were looking to renew or go to market with, and customer can say, hey, look, I see this opportunity. Pick up the phone and say, what do you think? Should we execute on this?
Right.
So that's more or less, that's our procurement offering, how we do it for customers who want to transact on the platform with us. I think we talked about also our advisory services. So that's a step up. You did say that a lot of your customers wouldn't be interested in this, but it's a ongoing management of energy for larger customers.
A lot of that's what all my customers probably ultimately want. It just would
want it.
It has to be in check, though, right? I mean, because ultimately, they're oil and gas companies. They know energy, they know the market, they know the prices. I mean, they don't want to be hounded, if you will.
Right.
You can hound me all you want, which is fine.
Yeah.
And I'll go through the proper channeling. But
we set up the cadence with the customer, whatever they're comfortable with, whatever they need, right? So with our advisory service, it's an ongoing market analysis and education, and we're going to provide a number of reports to the customer. Typically, these are customers that don't just lock in a 2-year contract and fix it and forget it, right? These are customers that are going to put
all that stuff.
block and index and hedging strategies and things like that, where minute movements in the market cost them millions of dollars, right? So these are just some of the reports that we put out with our advisory services, cost estimates. So this is an overall picture of what their cost and usage would be. Budget variance analysis. So we do this at a certain periodic time, depending on the customer, where, okay, here's a strategy we chose. Here's what we executed on. It wasn't meeting our budget targets, yes or no, and and how are we going to forecast that out for you for next year, so you can set your budgets. So this is usually the most helpful thing for most of our advisory customers, is being able to set that budget.
Right, that's actually very useful.
And then, we have our block hedge scenario analysis. Usually, I told you most of our advisory customers are doing the block and index with some hedging. We also offer, through our advisory services, supply management in regulated markets. So this is where we can help them make sure that they're on the right tariff, that they're maximizing all of the available, anything available through their utility, and we can still do budgets and things like that, and identify any available programs that might be available to them. So this is a service that we do for customers that are in regulated utilities.
Do you run the real analysis for them, like if they wanted to detach from the regulated and run infrastructure, pay for it from deregulated? Like, so say if there's a deregulated,
question. We talked about this before.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, because, I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah, so that might fall more under our professional services. I would have to find out if that's something that we
Please
could
do,
do.
because that's a very
Um,
imperative thing. I mean, I'm dealing with it right now with AEP, but they literally take their sweet time. I could have had this done almost
right,
2 months ago if it wasn't just having to go through those engineers. You know, I mean, give me a
right.
break. Maybe you could have somebody just go out there and do it with them. Like, I mean, I don't even know, but there's ultimately I'm not gonna drive all the way out to AEP or and do all that stuff, but there has to be some sort of way in which we already know it's possible, and they're trying to run the analysis themselves. So I'm just curious if you guys actually have anybody there that's knowledgeable on that subject in particular, because it's going to be not only having to deal with here in Texas, but in Ohio and in Pennsylvania as well. Any oil and gas bearing plays, like as far as states go, mainly Marcellus Shale up north, and definitely down here in the southern Eagleford Shale, Permian Basin, straddling New Mexico, West Texas over there. I mean, that's like in rural areas. So you're gonna want to have to. They do lie like right in dual zones, but they have no idea that they even are there because I mean they ultimately paid for the infrastructure originally to come out to their wells. You know what I'm saying? So it's like they
Yep.
don't even care. I mean, they don't care how much it costs to run the infrastructure, but if there's any sort of cost savings over time they could ultimately get, they would want to do that all day long, and they would lock in the longest term contracts or maybe do block and variable depending on how active the market is. Because when the price of oil lumps, like it did here in March, they're going to shut in all their wells. All their pumps that were pumping, they're going to go to zero. So you don't want to be on, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter, right? But maybe you want to not be in a fixed rate contract at that point. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that they're probably, I don't think they could even get a fixed price contract at a well, because if there's the option, they have the option to shut down, or they might shut down at any given time, then they probably would not want to lock in. I don't think any supplier would lock in a fixed rate, because typically with a fixed rate you're locking into a certain amount of usage, right? And if they're not locking in, they're not going to lock in their usage if there's a potential of just shutting down the pump,
Right, but
because
I
they
mean,
won't be using
you
any.
can look up all the historic data, though, right? I mean, long as, the historical events don't happen again, like recently, then obviously everything was gonna be at a certain level, right? So,
Right.
story based on history.
Yeah, I don't mean. I mean, I'm not an analyst, but just my gut feeling is it's really interesting that they could just
You
shut
don't
down
have
if they want
anybody
to.
in there that worked in the oil and gas industry? I mean, like the actual like operations side or anything like that.
I couldn't tell you. We have 1,200 people here. I don't know all of their backgrounds, but I can find out.
But I was gonna say, could you? I mean, that if you put that on your the other list of other things, I mean, because I would love to take the guy's ear, on this stuff.
Yeah, sure. I'll see if I can find somebody. Hold on, I'm making myself a note. Okay, so
there's 6 clients in
the
end. I mean, major. I mean, they got multi-state portfolios and they're major operators. You'll recognize the names. That's all I'm gonna say. So and I have them like available like right now. I mean, we're doing it one at a time because you see how long this one took. I mean, dang, I'm only me, myself, and I pretty much for the most part, and I'm dependent on everybody else. So you guys have a team there I could ultimately tap into there, and we could all utilize our skills of whatever, knowing both sides of the market. I think we could get it done here, and then get it done, but get it done in the right way. You know, because I would want these accounts to be catered because these are relationships that go above me and like my mentors and stuff, even my father's relationships. So I would want them to definitely be taken care of by y'all. You know, I never even knew a company like Internog existed. The fact that, man, if I didn't even come across you guys or anything like that, or you never called me or anything, I mean, I would have definitely been not doing these guys a good favor, just signing all that stuff and then kind of leaving it alone. I mean, I don't think I would have done anything less for him now. I shouldn't have. But great, I think it's going to work out perfect. So.
Let me ask you a question. So you said you have 6 companies that have multi-state portfolios. Are you talking about portfolios of wells or portfolios of office buildings or portfolios of,
actually a mixture of both.
Of refineries or what?
It's actually everything you've just
or all
listed.
Of the above.
It's all of it.
Okay.
It's literally a mix of both. Some of them like commercial real estate, majority of it's oil and gas, even going down to refineries, fueling. They all have office spaces though. I mean, a lot of it too.
Yeah.
A lot of it in shops and storage places. I mean, dude, that's just the buildings. You know, I mean, then they got all this others. Anyways, keep going. I'm sorry for interrupting there. I just wanted to say that.
No, that's fine. So just kind of go back. We have a very transparent process here. We, the customer knows about everything that we do, so that helps, and the suppliers know, which helps them reduce their risk premiums. And all that information is stored in our platform. I think I mentioned we've done 50,000 auctions. Now I got to update this slide. And about $45 billion in commodities has been procured through the auction. Our market directors have an average of 18 years of experience, and we were actually involved in the first deregulated transaction. So here's a kind of a slide of our some of our best partners in all walks of life. We do businesses, obviously, utilities. We have a wholesale procurement. Did my PowerPoint just died? Hold on. That's weird.
Chinese are hacking us.
Okay. I know, right? I can't.
Yeah.
And I'm not backwards now. I don't even. Let's see. Let me go back. Hold on. Now it's backwards. But that's okay. I'll just share my other screen. Okay. Or not. This is so weird. I do not understand this. So they've upgraded this PowerPoint presentation, and okay, here we go. So let's go back. Okay, so here's we have a very deep wholesale business, is what I was going to say. And, some of these companies who want to buy from the utility, well, they're actually really indirectly buying from us because we are the ones helping the utilities procure their power through the auction platform. Okay, so let's talk about what you have to do to, get the meeting with the customer. First of all, obviously they have to be in deregulated states. So here's the map of deregulated states. The dark blue is electricity, and the turquoise is the gas. The gray, we can't help them. And California and Michigan are weird. I think we talked about that. So our target customer is obviously must be located in a deregulated state. We have a minimum contract size of $5,000 in revenue, which means if a customer, say, uses 3 million kilowatt hours annually, and we're adding a fee of 2/10 of a cent, or 2 mils is another way to say it, per kilowatt hour, that means for 3 million kilowatt hours with 2 mils on it is $6,000, so that deal would meet our minimum requirement. The minimum size for an auction is 3 to 5 million kilowatt hours. It depends how many meters and where it's located and things like that, or 25,000 decatherms for gas. So typically customers who are meeting this, I mean, we've talked about this, that your customers are all well north of this, but the typical customer that's meeting this criteria is spending about $15,000 a month on electricity. Our minimum advisory customer has $2 million in annual spend. And, you know, all verticals, everybody has a light switch. So, so the next thing I wanted to get into was our sales process. And in some of the questions that you need to ask to get the meeting, but I'll just say this, because unfortunately I told you I have to jump at 3, but this is a slide of our Internoc sales process, right? So the first step is to evangelize to the customer. In other words, tell the customer enough information so that they agree to meet with Internoc. And that's where you come in. That's your job. And then once we've done that, then we're going to go through the rest of our sales process. And we've found this works, and we typically do not deviate from it. So in order to get the meeting, I want to go over, I have a bunch of discovery questions that I wanted to show you, but you know, they're all designed to uncover what the customer's pain point is, what their needs are, and you know, point out that perhaps we can improve on what they're already doing. So I'm going to just flip through. These are the questions we can go over. This is a process. We call it MedPick. It's the information that we're going to try to get from the customer that helps us get all the information that we need, and we can go over this in detail at another time. I wanted to get to this slide. So what we're looking for when after we get a meeting with the customer, in order to, if they agree to work with us, we're going to need these documents. We need a bill copy for each meter that we're going to be going to bid for. We need a letter of authorization, an LOA, which is a form usually provided by the utility that allows us to obtain the historical usage data for the meter. So that means it's the load profile, the usage month by month, et cetera. This is what we provide to suppliers so that they're able to price out the account. And then an Internoc engagement agreement, which is the agreement that gives Internoc exclusivity so if they're going to purchase their power, they have to do it through Internoc for a specific period of time. Usually it's about 60 days. That gives us enough time to get the historical usage data, set up the auctions, and run the auctions, and a few weeks afterwards, so that customers can't use the auction to kind of see which supplier is offering the best price, and then go around us. So there's usually a few weeks of exclusivity post-auction so that a customer can't go around us. So I think we probably would be best scheduling an additional half hour or so just to go over these discovery questions and the MedPick. And I can talk a little bit about our partner program and the benefits that you're going to get. What's good for you?
As far as the next time to meet?
Yeah.
Tomorrow?
Let's see, yeah. Tomorrow, let me double check my calendar. I think I have some openings in the morning.